Your government has been pushing for international intervention with regards to this issue in Kashmir, and you finally managed to get a UN Security Council meeting after decades for the first time. But there was no conclusion from this meeting, and not even a statement was released. You must be incredibly disappointed.
No, I think there's a lot of background discussions took place, and I think Kashmir issue has been internationalized after a long time. Pakistan has been under a trap of a situation where Pakistan, in its good sense, went through with the Shimla Agreement, which detailed very specifically that there are issues which can be discussed bilaterally, and there are issues, if we can't solve them, they can go to multilateral agencies. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, they don't intend to sit down and talk to us. Under this excuse or that excuse, since 1972, after the Shimla Agreement, there has never been a discussion. India tends to ignore its agreements. More than 11 resolutions were passed by the United Nations, its Security Council. We didn't go to the Security Council. India went to the Security Council. But then it has violated all of them, doesn't want to make Kashmir an issue which can be settled between Pakistan, India, and the Kashmiris themselves. And Nehru, the first Prime Minister who was there until I think 1962, Nehru made so many speeches saying that the Kashmir issue has to be decided with the will of the Kashmiri people. But that was all what went out and what was said. But in reality, India is trying to control a huge population.
There are members of the United Nations Security Council who appear to want to put the onus on Pakistan and India to enter bilateral talks in order to resolve this situation.
For how long that will continue? 1972, how many years have passed? Can the world remain quiet and keep on pushing two parties to talk, with which one party doesn't want to talk?
India doesn't want to talk.
doesn't want to talk. So, can it be settled bilaterally? It cannot be settled bilaterally.
So India just refusing to talk to Pakistan?
India is refusing not only to talk to Pakistan, India is refusing to acknowledge that there is an issue. In fact, the United Nations Military Observers Group of India and Pakistan is there in India and Pakistan. It's an international issue. India refuses to recognize that, but it can't do that. In fact, I believe the Article 370 and 35, which they have amended, Pakistan did not agree to that because it was a matter of Indian subcontinent partition, that Muslim majority states will come towards Pakistan, and that's why a plebiscite was agreed upon by the Indian government. And why are they not following it up? I think there's a hegemonistic intent to swallow Kashmir. It won't happen.
So if you have this situation without international intervention, without bilateral talks going forward, what's the solution? What's the next step for you? Is military action potentially on the table?
For us, no. For us, we are going to keep on internationalizing that. For the media, the responsibility of media is to pick up all human rights violations and show to the world what is happening. I believe the Kashmiri people will show their own intention as soon as curfew is lifted. And I believe it can happen that India will do some false flag operations like Pulwama and then attack Pakistan. And I hope that doesn't happen. But Pakistan doesn't want to start a war.
So Pakistan, the government of Pakistan says that it doesn't want war with India. But at the moment, what we've seen is increasing tensions, political diplomatic response. We've seen numerous comparisons of the Indian Prime Minister Modi to Hitler. We've seen villages on the Pakistan-administered side of Kashmir claim that they're being hit by Indian forces. The Pakistani army is responding to that. You're very close to something which could spill over into war.
I think India wants that. And I think I will strongly discourage India from doing that. I believe India should withdraw whatever amendment it has made in the constitution. I believe Kashmir should be a part of, it should be allowed to deliberate its own future. But the changes which India has made in their constitution, I think India should take them back. I think India is going on a road which is very dangerous. India has recently formed a separate citizenship act. India is looking at the fact that they will give nationality to all people migrating towards India who are non-Muslims. But for Muslims, they don't want to do that. So India is agitating its own Muslim population. And I feel so sad about India doing that, because Pakistan has gone out of the extremism. We have managed to handle terrorism. India, that is why, from our experience, we are saying that India is playing with fire.
So if, as you say, India is trying to create a war or put Pakistan in a situation where there will be war, what will your response be to that military escalation?
I think the Prime Minister has made it very clear. We don't want war. We don't want to start a war. But we cannot take everything lying down. If India starts a war, it is our right to defend ourselves. No country in the world can forgo that right of defending ourselves.
Many Indian politicians, including the Indian ambassador to the United Nations, have said that Kashmir on the Indian side is an Indian issue, not a Pakistani issue.
They can say that whatever they want to. But the United Nations resolution have said that it's not an Indian issue. What else can I say? So I think India is trying to fool the world that it's only... It is like occupying a place, keeping it under occupancy and saying that you have nothing to do with that. All the history of Europe is filled with these situations where countries have occupied a different area and they've said, this is our own. We are not going to discuss that. So this is what happens.
Prime Minister Modi of India says that the reason why the special status was revoked from the Indian side of Kashmir was because it was enabling terrorism or separatist groups that they call terrorists.
Really?
How do you respond to that?
I think they've encouraged that with all this. What a foolish
India
statement.
have encouraged it.
Yes, India has encouraged that already by these actions, In fact, if anything was happening, in fact, with the articles they've amended, there was relative peace. But now they're encouraging terrorism on their own. Pakistan is not responsible. India should not have done that.
So what do you think is going to happen if the issue of Kashmir and what's happened in India right now isn't resolved?
I think the struggle has been pretty long. I think this struggle is about 70 years old. There was a very simple principle of partition of India and Pakistan. And the partition principle was that Muslim majority states should be with Pakistan and a Hindu majority state should be India, with India. That principle has been violated, and had the Indian government played a very understanding role with the Kashmiri people, they would have today become Indian citizens, but they have not. If India feels that it is going to improve the situation with these laws, I think they're living in a fool's paradise. That's what I said earlier, and I believe that even now, the international community should be putting pressure on India. I think it's playing with fire, and the fire will burn at least the secularity of India at least.